everyone and welcome to BrickCats. My channel is for anyone who enjoys custom LEGO creations, likes saving money, and or those looking to get into custom building. If you're a fan of my channel or are interested in supporting what I do, please consider liking this review, subscribing, or leaving a comment. Each like, subscription, and comment helps others find my channel, and I greatly appreciate your support. Today I'm reviewing Thomas Jenkins' new RZ1 A-Wing Starfighter. Without any substitutions, I was getting 7 stores and $86 without shipping and tax, or about $134 with shipping and tax, and I was able to bring this down significantly. In my reviews, I offer my opinions on aesthetics and model features, parts issues you might want to look out for, the build experience, the model's integrity, and I close out with my overall impression and pricing information in the conclusion. If you're watching this review, I assume you bought the instructions or are interested in buying them. I also assume a basic level of familiarity with Brickling's ordering system and LEGO nomenclature. I only use genuine LEGO bricks and I always purchase the instructions. Finally, I create these reviews for my own personal enjoyment and in the hopes that my advice will make your experience more enjoyable and or less expensive. Thomas Jenkins' A-Wing measures 7.75 inches long, about 5.5 inches wide, and tops out at about 5 inches off the surface of my table on its included display stand. Off the stand, the fighter is about 2 3/4 inches tall. Starting at the nose, the slot is perhaps a little wide, but it still looks good to me. The cones on either side form the front rounded portion of the two halves of the hull, and here I used some stickers to represent the concussion missile launchers. LEGO sticker sheets usually have that black section you could use that would be a little thicker than this, and this is actually the section in between two black stickers that I cut out. The sides of the upper and lower hull are shaped using the new 5x2 wedges and the new-ish 2x3 wedges. Appearance-wise, I think this is definitely the best solution for an accurately shaped hull in the amount of space available, since there's no equivalent to the 6x2 or the 10x3 wedges in 7 or 9 stud lengths, which is what you'd need. The cockpit does not open, and there's not an actual minifigure inside there. That's the pilot's head and helmet on one of the old-style racer bodies inside a Ninjago's Benjitsu canopy. It's not easy to get this out once the model is complete, so keep that in mind when deciding what to put in there, but personally I think this fighter looks much better with a minifigure inside to give a better sense of how compact the model actually is. The canopy is still not quite the right shape due to the indentations on the side, but at this scale it looks really good. The small section behind the cockpit is nearly perfectly shaped, and these two curved slope subassemblies are angled slightly towards the back, making good use of the brick round 1x1 by 2/3 half circle extended with side stud. I also like the inclusion of this white section at the very rear. There's some minor color detailing to either side of the cockpit, and there's also just some minor textures scattered throughout to give the illusion of battle damage or wear and tear. The cannons on either side look good. This piece is a little bit expensive, but the dark bluish gray and the red Technic pins have proven very useful in general. The cannons can be rotated up and down pretty easily. I think there's an argument for extending the backside a little bit further if you wanted to, and I've got more on this cannon assembly in the part section. The underside of the fighter is built out. There are no landing skids, and the spaces where the stand inserts right here can be covered up with tiles if you want to display this off the stand. The engines use the large cylinder pieces with cutouts, and I did modify the engine glow slightly to avoid waiting for the yellow dish pieces from Pick-a-Brick Standard. I was a little surprised that these fin pieces were used, as they're a little bit off in their proportions, specifically the front section is a little bit too tall. Nonetheless, they still look fine. I used the sticker pieces from the most recent Playscale A-Wing, set 75175, and I think these stickers add a lot to the model. Unfortunately, they are a little bit expensive these days, but the plain white fins look fine as well. And finally for the fighter, the rear section in between the engines is somewhat open to the interior of the model, and it would have been better if I had used the black lightsaber pieces here. I haven't been able to find any great pictures of this area, but from the few sources that look semi-likely to be authoritative, it does appear this area is not covered up with paneling. The display stand is nice and simple, and it holds the fighter at a nice upward angle. And these two sections slot into the slots on the other side and hold it very securely. This is by far the best looking A-Wing I know of at this scale. The designer makes great use of a number of newer elements to great effect, and use of the Ninjago windscreen, which is nearly the perfect shape for the A-Wing canopy, sets this model apart from others. Thomas Jenkins' A-Wing model and the included stand require 153 elements and 460 pieces. First, I mentioned in the last section that I made a minor modification to the engines. I replaced the trans yellow 2x2 dishes, part 4740, with a trans yellow boat stud, part 2654, and the 4L bars in trans yellow, part 30374, with a trans clear antenna 4L, part 3957B. The dishes tend to be very expensive on Bricklink, and while the trans yellow dishes are available on Pick-a-Brick, I wanted to do this review and get it done before I'm likely to be out for a few months due to me moving. I did not make this change in my pricing research due to the specified dish being available on Pick-a-Brick, but this may be a useful substitution for you if you are drawing from your own inventory. And the main difference is that you can kind of see a little bit of a gap here between the boat stud and the tensioning pulley here. And with the dish, that is eliminated, but again, it's pretty small, noticeable detail. And like I said, if you're ordering from Pick-a-Brick, which I definitely recommend, that will not be an issue for you. The following elements are entirely hidden and can be any color. Most of these are inexpensive, but the bracket 1x1, 1x2 in dark bluish gray is still a newer recolor, and even though it's been in a number of sets, it's still quite expensive at around 50 cents each in my search results from Bricklink. The cone 2x2x2 blocked open stud, part 3942B in white, is an older variant and very uncommon. I recommend changing this to the much more common open stud variant, part 3942C. The cylinder 3x6x2 and 2/3 horizontal round connections between interior studs, part 30360 in dark red, is interchangeable with the variant that has square connections in between the interior studs, part 93168. I found the square connection variant to be reliably less expensive and more common in dark red. The Technic pin connector round with slot, bar lengthwise and bars out in dark bluish gray, part X383 makes up the main section of the Kamens. This is an awesome piece, but only appeared in dark bluish gray in the classic Ultimate Lightsaber Duel set, that's 7257 from 2005. As a result, this is not very common in the US for a reasonable price, and it almost always adds a store because most sellers only have one for sale. To me, the Kamens also look closer to black than dark bluish gray, so I came up with this design that uses much more common elements in black. Now, there are many people with much more design sense and talent than I, so consider this a starting point if you aren't able to get X383, and you can modify this to your taste. Here are the parts you need, and here is a brief video up in the corner here with how you put it together. Compared with the original, this is significantly less expensive and less likely to add a store to your Bricklink algorithm results, but visually it is definitely less elegant. So I will show you this side with my modification, and then here's the original, and you can kind of see both. I did extend this a little bit further back like I talked about earlier, so you can decide which one you like. However, if you do want to reduce the cost of the Kamen subassembly but still use X383, the minifigure utensil screwdriver wide head 3-rib handle in black, part 11402A, is very expensive, and it's used as the targeting sensor. I recommend changing this to the bar 2L with stop ring, part 78258, taking your total of that element from 1 to 3. This element is not as slim as the screwdriver, but the screwdrivers are typically at least $2 each. If you like the thin look of the screwdriver, which is definitely more proportionally accurate, Babacat, that's Instagram at Babacat, Mox reminded me that the minifigure wand, part 36752A in black, would work well. This is very common in black, and I think this is even better than the screwdriver anyway, as the targeting sensors are quite narrow in Kamen. The minifigure neck bracket with back stud, thin back wall in dark red, part 42446, is very expensive. I'm really hoping LEGO makes this in the current thick back wall variant in dark red, as these are a pain in the butt to get. This is used for a detail on the hull, which you can see in some of the film models. Personally, I'm not convinced this is worth it, so I recommend adding an additional 1x1 tile, part 3070 in dark red, bringing your total of those from 7 to 8. You can also decrease the count of part 85861, the plate round 1x1 with open stud in black, from 5 to 4. Then in step 94, place the 1x1 dark red tile and skip the bracket in step 95. You will definitely maximize your savings buying the required elements from LEGO's Pick-a-Brick service. Pick-a-Brick orders over $35 ship for free, and if you spend more than $14 in the bestseller or standard categories, the handling fees are waived. I use the Brick Hunter extension to check the entire parts list against the Pick-a-Brick inventory, and I'll go over those results in the conclusion. I also have a referral link to Pick a Break for which I give a small portion of the proceeds. A huge thank you to the several of you who have already used it, and a huge thank you for supporting the channel. Instructions for this model contain 145 steps for the fighter and 19 steps for the stand. Each part of subassembly added in each step is highlighted in red against the white background. This generally works fine. With a large number of dark red subassemblies and pieces, it can be a little bit harder to see the outline than if it were a different color, like teal or something like that, but that's generally not a problem. Pacing is generally okay. There are some steps with a lot of pieces and others with very few, so it would be nice to even that out a little bit. The build is challenging, even though the instructions are generally very clear on what you need to do. Certain subassemblies in the build are quite fragile until they get secured later on, so finding safe spots to apply pressure is sometimes trial and error, and I definitely found myself retracing the steps a couple of times. In total, the build took me about 3 hours without pre-sorting the pieces beforehand, and I think experienced builders will have the best time with this model as a result. There are only a couple of steps I had some issues with. Step 81 has you using what I believe is Mr. Jenkins' favorite connection with the roller skate element. Unless you ordered your 1x1 dark red plates new, this connection may help you determine how old some of your dark red 1x1 plates are. For me, this resulted in many broken dark red plates, as this is an illegal connection, and LEGO's dark red weaknesses have been well documented. With new plates, this does not seem to be an issue. The subassembly in steps 96 and 97 didn't quite stay straight no matter how hard I tried. The problem seems to be the hollow stud that went on in step 94. It creates strain on the 1x2 and 1x4 plates. This is also a step in which you may find your 1x4 tile is an old one, as this caused one of mine to break during construction. The 3L black bar in step 108 needs to stick out a little bit per the note in the instructions, but I also recommend trying to get it in a position that bridges the gap between these two Technic pins. This serves as the connection point for the underside of the hull, so if it's not bridging this gap, it's much less stable when you're trying to make that connection. Finally, when connecting the engines, I had a much easier time attaching the subassemblies in steps 130 and 139 to the hull first, and then clipping the engines on. This may have been a me problem, but it's quite hard to see inside this section at the back to line up the studs. This model is swishable. You hold it something like this, but it definitely doesn't feel very solid, and after putting this model together, you'll get a sense for where you can apply pressure and where you can't, and you can't apply much pressure in many places. Thus, I think this is more of a display model. That said, since the fighter is so light, it's only 460 pieces, moving it around gently isn't too bad, and this actually feels pretty solid. And there's no pieces that are just hanging at one end or anything like that, and if I kind of shake this up and down, there's really no creaking or anything like that. So it's not delicate per se. I would just not go, squeezing anywhere around here too often if you can help it. The most unreliable connection for me is between the engine and the main hull back here. The tolerances seem to be quite tight, and since you can't really see inside there to make sure everything's secure, it took a bit of trial and error to make this connection successfully for me. Even so, there's two tile clips right around here, so the engine can act like a long lever if you bump it towards the thruster end, and it will likely come off. Other than that, there's no specific area I think is particularly fragile, but again, you'll get a sense for where the less durable parts are during the build. Another problem I've had is that the connection between the back of the thruster and the actual engine, there's not a whole lot of clutch on the bar piece you use, and this is true for the bar and the antenna. I did try it, and you can kind of see it here as well. So sometimes you'll see that thruster section will just start popping loose, but not too big of a deal. Since there are no landing skids built into this model, I think most people will opt for the display stand, although I do think this would be okay if set down and picked up in a mock scene of some kind. And a side note, I'm not actually sure if landing skids are canon. If someone could provide a source for that, if they think it is. I know other models definitely tend to include them, but I think in Return of the Jedi in the scene with the Home One hangar, you kind of see an A-wing like just resting on its side like that or something. I'd have to check that. And luckily the display stand is very good. The base is not large, but the model itself isn't very large or heavy either, so it does the job just fine. The fighter is very secure on the stand, and that's very secure even without a steady connection, and it also makes it pretty easy to sit down, and more importantly, makes it very easy to take off. You know, if there's a stubby connection, sometimes the stubby connection will stick and things break, but not so, because those are tiled off right there. In conclusion, I think this is easily the most detailed A-wing for its size. The designer came up with some really clever ways to get certain shapes and made great use of new elements in this model. Combine its accuracy with a decent level of stability and you've generally got a good model. When you factor in the price, it has the potential to be a great one. Again, without any substitutions, I got 7 stores and $86 without shipping and tax, or about $134 with shipping and tax. With my substitutions, it dropped down to 5 stores and $70 without shipping and tax, or about $103 with shipping and tax. In buying as many elements as I could off of LEGO's Pick-a-Brick service, my Pick-a-Brick total was $50, that included tax but no shipping and handling. And then the remaining elements from Bricklink, there were 10 of them, I got from 2 stores and $5 without shipping and tax, or about $17 with shipping and tax, for a total of $67. Your mileage may vary, of course, but I was pretty happy to see this come down so much. You have to keep in mind that this is actually kind of the perfect example in favor of Pick-a-Brick. The model uses several newer elements that aren't widely available on Bricklink but have been added to Pick-a-Brick, and the elements that you can only get from Bricklink aren't particularly expensive. Also, very importantly, this figure does not include a a pilot head or helmet, so make sure you figure that in as well. Anecdotally, I believe the helmet is probably around $1 or so, and you can use pretty much any head with an expression that you like, so that'll probably add, maybe another $1.50 or something like that. Hopefully it won't add a store, but you can check that. I also make some fairly significant substitutions that, while they lower the price, they do change the look of the model significantly. I have a feeling if you're watching this video that you're more than capable of weighing the trade-offs there. Any way you slice it though, I feel like this model is a really great value, and that's not an easy mark to hit with LEGO in general, much less with custom models. Instructions for this model cost $12.99 and are available on Rebrickable, and that brings the lowest total I was able to get to about $80 using Pick-a-Brick. There will be a link to where you can buy those in the description below. If you buy the pieces for this model off Pick-a-Brick and want to support the channel, my referral link is also in the description, and again, a huge thank you if you decide to use it. Thanks as always for watching my review of Thomas Jenkins' A-Wing Starfighter. If you've built the model, you have something to share that I left out, or have a question about something I didn't cover, please leave your thoughts below in the comments. I'm very conscious that subscribers are earned and not deserved, so if you enjoy my content and want to see more, consider subscribing, leave the video a like or a comment, or follow me on Instagram if you haven't already. Thank you, and I hope to see you back next time.